Hi, dear friends. This is Vasilina Orlova with you, and I am here to talk to you about life-enhancing anxiety, the concept by Dr. Kirk Schneider. He wrote a book that is titled Life-Enhancing Anxiety, Key to a Sane World, and I would like to talk to you about one of the essays here, or maybe like 1.5 essays. Specifically, chapter 17, the empirical support for life-enhancing anxiety. And I do thank you for being here and for being willing to entertain our sort of free-floating seminars or the directionless meditations. I really appreciate it. So he's opening this essay with the idea that depending on our personal and interpersonal backgrounds, anxiety can be experienced as awful or awesome or some animating combination of the two. The general idea of this book is that we have a lot of anxiety in our lives, and we are dealing with anxiety that we have in a very unproductive way. We are generally trying to exclude it from our lives. We try to distract ourselves by all sorts of ways, including like all these entertainments that contemporary world has to offer, perhaps substances, perhaps some sort of adventures that are designed specifically to keep us out of this anxious state of mind. And the idea is that we need to face this anxiety, and that anxiety can be not just destructive, but also necessary, and that we can transform it into the awe, into this marvel, the state of marvel at the endlessness of the universe and the endlessness of our experiences and the depth and the mystery and the limitlessness of everything. So I thought it was really a great idea, and that we would benefit if we were giving it a thought. And I want to bring several highlights from this essay. Anxiety performance curve, also known as the Jerkes-Dodson law. This is a quote. This law proposes that as arousal or anxiety go up, so too does general performance, say public speaking, riding a horse, or crafting a business plan. But as anxiety continues to go up, it appears to reach a peak of diminishing returns. This is the point at which the rise of anxiety overwhelms one's capacity to focus, deliberate upon, or shape one's actions, and those abilities start to degrade. Well, I think it's a more or less popular idea that, for instance, a little bit of stress is good for you, that crisis can be not only destructive, but also productive. And finally, the idea that there is an anxiety and performance curve seems to be something along the lines of these ideas, that it's good basically to experience anxiety to a degree, until it becomes overwhelming and until it begins to reach a peak of diminishing returns, the way Schneider calls it. At which point anxiety is overwhelming. Of course, it's easier said than done that you can just keep anxiety at bay. But I think the general, more general metaphysical sort of argument of this book is that unless there is anxiety, it's not worth it, basically. Unless there is some sort of incredible provocation, really testing you to your limits, unless there is this situation in which you do experience anxiety, life is kind of uninteresting, and it's maybe repetitive, it may be boring, and so on and so on. So there is something here, some sort of balance to at least attempt to strike, right? If anxiety potentially helps you in public speaking to a degree, to a point when it doesn't help you anymore, then potentially you would embrace this anxiety and allow yourself to feel it. Again, just several bits. I don't think this essay kind of returns to one thesis that it is making. Rather, it's a collection, a tapestry of various, thoughts here and there about anxiety, prominent, interesting thoughts. George Bonanno calls the mindset that would allow to go through this anxiety flexibility mindset. And again, I'm quoting from Schneider here. It involves facing anxiety, but with an attitude of optimism, challenge, and confidence. And again, another quote, anxiety remains menacing if one doesn't face it. So the idea is that the more you avoid anxiety, the more menacing it becomes. It's always there, kind of ready to pounce at you. And if we face the anxiety, and if we go into the situations that produce anxiety, quote, often, I guess this encounter with anxiety is often less threatening than what one fantasizes it to be. And this is the common idea, I think, of the contemporary approaches to anxiety that involve exposure therapy. Let's say the idea is to habituate the person to the exposures that become more and more potentially anxiety producing, to the point when the person just stops experiencing anxiety because they were exposed to the situations. And time and again, the idea that the experience is going to be ruinous for them just doesn't face the scrutiny. It just fails. This idea that anxiety will destroy them or they would not be able to tolerate them is turning out to be not true time and again. And so at some point we are just like, whatever, I'm not anxious anymore about that. So returning to Banana, the way Schneider outlines these ideas for us, there are three components, right, that we already named: optimism, challenge, orientation, and confidence. There is a little bit of explication of each. Optimism is the sense of hope that life can be better, so at least permitting yourself the idea that possibly the future can be better than the past, that there is a change possible, that there is a transformation that awaits you. A challenge orientation is the recognition that crisis can be an opportunities. Again, well, I think crisis is the Greek word, and it comes with the root of decision. Confidence, the sense that one can do it, coupled with the pride that reinforces the letter sense. I like it because confidence here is where will the sense that one can do it come from? It's definitely not from this kind of cavalier and blasé attitude of a person who never tried to go through anxiety or face it. Rather, this confidence is just coming from knowing yourself, from knowing that you are able to endure this anxiety-provoking situations, right? So I like that Schneider brings in the concept of post-traumatic growth, and that's in general marvelous concept. I feel like the idea is that whatever trauma is occurring, if there is a growth after this trauma that allows it to be integrated into our body and into our narratives, into our worldviews, into our understanding of ourselves, we get to, well, not benefit from trauma, but nobody benefits from trauma in this sense, probably, but we get to grow. And I think why the concept of post-traumatic growth is so marvelous and really so wonderful is that it directly answers to a very long standing human, again, anxiety, that after trauma, after this event of exposure to anxiety, I will never be the same. This is how it's called. This is how people often phrase it to date. And the first time I encountered this particular formula was, I think, in MacDonald's book on mystical bedlam about the medieval psychiatrist and magician and alchemist Napier, the father of psychiatry, probably contemporary or something, and the psychology as well. Back then, already at these early ages of humanity, Napier recorded in his notes, which survived, maybe not all of them, but some, survived to our days in archives and things like that, that the thought that brought people anxiety was, I will never be the same. So the idea of post-traumatic growth is that, yes, you will never be the same, but you will grow from here. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a marvelous idea. And as far as what Tedeschi and Calhoun in Schneider frame, the way they frame it, they oppose that notion of traumatic growth, or maybe that's Schneider who does that. But the opposition to it is this idea of resilience, that you're able to bounce back. Resilience is the idea that you're able to bounce back from trauma and just kind of like a rubber something, get back into your shape. But some traumas, of course, will not allow that, and there is no shape to return that. I will never be the same. And so here comes this idea of traumatic growth that confirms that, and at the same time says that the future is possible. I'm moving on to some other highlights that I wanted to discuss with you here. Rank offered that the artist, that's a quote again from Schneider, develops the fortitude to respond to, rather than merely react against the sorrows and difficulties of his or her world. This response takes the form of a more sort of composed creation. And again, that is a great point, because when something really traumatic and anxiety producing is happening, our first response to it is not really a response, it's a reaction. It's some sort of cry or scream, or like a tweet, the angry tweet or something like that. And only those who are able, actually, and that's very unfair, because maybe not everybody has this opportunity, but only those who ultimately do have the opportunity to kind of step back from that, live through post-traumatic growth, go through anxiety, and face this awe to which Schneider calls us we need to be kind of facing. Only those develop this capacity to respond. The response is that work of art or literature or a project or any sort of, I don't know, like initiative that is designed, that is obviously done in a very cold, if you will, state of mind, in a very composed state of mind, that is not a reaction at all, because you cannot unfold this complex project out of the place of anger, out of the place of being traumatized, out of the acute experience of anxiety. You can only attempt to this project after you are out of the crisis and you have experienced a period of post-traumatic growth. Another highlight I wanted to bring, Lang has called, this quote, has called ontological security or security with being itself. I'm obviously jumping through some steps here, but again, this idea of ontological security returns us to the idea of confidence, the sense that one can do it. I think this security with being itself, again, probably comes from the place of knowing yourself, which again probably comes from the place of going through anxiety and facing the anxiety rather than avoiding it or distracting yourself from it or using substances to medicate yourself or things like that, right? So, and there is also another highlight, Maslow, probably the author of Maslow's pyramid, proposed that, again, that's a quote from Schneider, that self-actualizers had relatively less fear than other people. They were certainly less enculturated, he said, less afraid of what other people would say or demand or laugh at. Perhaps more important, he went on, self-actualizing people showed, again, that's a quote within a quote, a lack of fear of their own insides, of their own impulses, emotions, thoughts. This approval and acceptance of their own deeper selves then made it possible to perceive bravely the real nature of the world and also made their behavior more spontaneous. Again, I think it all just comes back to that confidence that knowing yourself brings. And knowing yourself is happening, obviously, when we do face the anxieties rather than try to evade them. So the idea is, as I already said, is that through anxiety, we come to this awe, to this feeling of mystery and fascination in front of the endlessness of the world, in front of the possibility, in front of the depth of the human nature itself that is obviously bottomless. We don't know where and how it ends. And Schneider defines, or rather, he brings Keltner and Haid to define, again, a quote, awe as a sense of vastness that cannot be assimilated, that is integrated into existing schemas, but that could potentially be accommodated, that is integrated into new schemas. So how do we encounter this vastness and how do we encounter this void, or rather not void, but we can call it sublime. How do we encounter that sublime? The ideas that he brings is that we need to we need to take walks in nature, observe cosmic events, sit before sunsets or sprawling landscapes. And what ultimately Schneider proposes, I think, is that we begin living in the state of awe and in the state of encountering the mystery, I guess, as opposed to that search for happiness that presumably is what contemporary psychology is trying to search for. And I mean, the search for happiness and the right to experience happiness is obviously in the American Constitution. Like a citizen has the right to search for happiness, which again, in some contemporary interpretations, is like the right to search for prosperity or something, the right to search for the situation that would completely like accommodate whatever wishes and desires one has. And the state of awe is not happiness necessarily, right? He says in the beginning of this essay that it can be awful and it can be awesome. But at the same time, this kind of offers something apparently more fulfilling potentially than happiness, or at least the happiness could be defined in mathematical ways, like self-reported happiness in relation to what you possess or what you have, or it's connected like to your fulfillment of some goals, to socioeconomic status, right? Or something like that. Whereas awe is not really tethered to any of that. Awe is just a state of wonder. Like you don't need to possess anything to experience awe. You don't need to be anybody to experience awe. And ultimately, I think basically what it says is that awe is, I guess, more accessible than happiness. So it's just one essay from this book. It's chapter 17, and um, the essay is really short, but it does contain a lot of these nuggets that I just wanted to take out of it and to kind of discuss with you. I would like to thank you so much for being here with me today. Like this video, if you have this capacity. I think I might record some other videos about some other of these essays. Not every essay in here appeared to me like spoke to me to the same level than other did, but some definitely spoke to me quite directly. And I'm hoping you are having a great day, great week, and I'll see you soon again. Bye bye.